I hope that everyone in this room has an open enough mind to realize that we are not failing to recognize the problems of poverty and unrest that our neighbors struggle with, nor are we saying that these people in these countries deserve to live those lives. What we seek to do is establish that many types of aid within the broad spectrum of U.S. humanitarian aid are poor and have little hope of recovery. And so, continuing in this mindset, it seems the most logical option would be to eliminate the types of aid that are simply not possible, like U.S. food aid. It is one of the most inefficient aspects of U.S. humanitarian aid, but is the largest, supplying more than half of all food aid designated to relieve hunger. Aid programs began in the 1950s not for humanitarian purposes, but as a way to get rid of surpluses for crops. And the aid portion was intended as kind of a bonus. U.S. aid programs right now are doing more harm than good in the countries they seek to benefit. Restrictions which state that at least 75% of food aid has to be grown and packaged in the United States and shipped using U.S. flag-bearing vessels create more problems than they solve. What happens a lot of times in these countries is that the government subsidizes our crops heavily, and so when they're shipped to these countries, it puts the local farmers out of business, and the local farmers were the ones that we were trying to help initially, because they can't get enough food to their people. The USAID website, which is one of the major organizations that gives food aid, states on their own website that the USAID provided $2.6 billion emergency food assistance to 26 countries in 2008, but only $129 million were designated for buying food locally. And also that what goes along with this is that U.S. food aid is cumbersome and expensive to ship, and it takes almost 5 months to get there a lot of times, which isn't enough for humanitarian relief and natural disasters and things like that. Because people are relying on shipping, it also places a lot of importance on the shipping companies, which right now are lobbying a lot to keep their interest growing, and so that's why it's very hard to eliminate these policies. In all of this time, the amount of actual food aid has dropped significantly between 2001 and 2006, 52%, according to a government report. So, by targeting government programs like these, which really aren't doing very much good and that don't have much hope for recovery, we would eliminate the types of aid that are harmful. The 60% of total U.S. foreign aid that is from private giving would not be lost, and those that consider a moral responsibility would have no restrictions from giving aid. Furthermore, all this government aid is given on the assumption that U.S. government has the right or the responsibility to be in these countries. Independence movements like those led by Gandhi and other countries were in part because of foreign interference in their economic policies. And so a lot of times in countries like the Middle East, where we try to give aid because we think that it will help our diplomacy, there's a lot of people who don't actually want this there. And it's shown a lot in history. The Shah of Iran was actually overthrown because he was seen as giving in to U.S. officials and what comes along with that. And also, we hold the assumption that government programs are actually going to be successful when a lot of times the same government programs, like subsidizing railroads, has not worked in our country. So our government was created to protect our people until the 1950s, when competition for political and economic control against the Soviet Union and other non-democratic countries pushed us into more aggressive foreign policy. The U.S. was not really concerned with countries outside. And it led us to focus on many problems at home, which is really what we should be doing. We have a lot of problems at home that need our attention. Regions with economic or political problems need to develop and grow without reliance on foreign aid, or else they become dependent on it, like Tanzania, where at one point the budget was made up of 50% of the budget in Tanzania was made up of foreign aid. And so again, I'd like to repeat that the current state of our foreign aid is doing very little for the countries other than stirring U.S. resentment, increasing our national debt, and aiding corrupt governments. It's impossible to ignore that these problems, which our lengthy and cumbersome democratic government cannot adapt to in every single situation, are not helpful at all. And if the negative must put morals at the center of a policy debate, you must only point out that it is not morally correct to ignore the problems that are inside our foreign aid programs right now. Thank you.